Record? You ready to record? I can just go. Yeah, all right. We're gonna call to order the Monday, March 13th meeting of the Committee of the Whole Administration and Operations Committee. It is, I'll just note the time is 6:20. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, I need a mover to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Snail, seconded by Councillor Ward. Discussion none, all in favor. Done. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Does anyone have any disclosures to make tonight?
I do, Mr. Mayor, on 7L County Road 2 infrastructure and road reconstruction tender award.
Okay, and have
Papers are filled out
and
and given to the clerk.
you will be stepping away for the
I will.
discussion. Good. Not good, but good to step away. All right, so no other disclosures. Hearing none, we will look at the minutes, business arising from the previous committee meeting of the whole minutes. If anyone has anything on those minutes, does anyone have, are there one set or two sets? One or two sets? There are two sets. Anyone? Nothing? Nothing? I don't have anything. Steve, you're good? Yes? No? Really? Waiting on you. You're good?
Yes, I'm good. Sorry.
It's okay. All right, so no delegations and presentations. Discussion item is 6A, which is the display for the sports memorabilia. And to clerk, I'm assuming that I will go to, or to CAO, I assume I'll go to the, I'm going to the clerk for this one.
Through the chair, you can kind of bounce it off depending on what questions.
Okay, and does somebody want to give a little, just give a little background on it? Because there's a bit of information there as well, a little tiny report, that's right.
The chair, if you like, I can provide a little summary.
Sure, that'd be great.
During the February 21st committee meeting, there was discussion brought forward in regards to a couple of shadow boxes. And committee requested staff bring forward additional information, whether it be in the form of a policy, information on ownership contributions, timelines, displaying the items. So staff took a little bit different approach and is looking for some feedback as to what type of display model is committee and council interested in. Staff has explored two models, one being traditional display model where an individual would donate an item or items, and we would have to go through a process of determining ownership, whether or not we want to do a transfer of the ownership, the transfer of ownership agreement to the township, and then we would take on the responsibility and liability for that process. Or we could build that somewhat into the agreement. Committee would need to determine what items are considered acceptable, time of displaying them, hierarchy, priority, as well as if you're going to be interested in delegating the tasks of installation, placement, displaying of the memorabilia, storage, etc., to township staff. Please note that we do have a lack of storage space at our recreation facilities. And the determination of whether or not we retain them for a certain period, try to return them back to the original donor. Those are all factors as well that need to be considered. As well as, are you going to be looking for any and all items, certain sporting items, local achievements, things that are of historical significance, priorities such as is this a bear from a local. I'm not good with hockey sport for the most part. They changed all the titles, sorry, YMC versus, retired NHL player from the qualified area that wants to retire to Jersey. So there's a lot of factors that would need to be considered for this. One of our main concerns is displaying the storage liability, retention of those. So we also looked at an additional option that will include, we haven't tried it out, the digital display option. It would avoid the issues of ownership, retention, disposal, displaying any liability if something were to get damaged. No concerns with people not liking where we potentially display an item, we can just be on one location. So our alternative option for the digital display is if somebody wants to figuratively donate something, they provide it to us in the format of a written background of the items. The photos, we can help them with that. We can actually build with their new farm builder online a application form where they can submit all the details to us. We can reach out to provide additional information, and then we could build almost like a repository where we could, at the beginning, because it is early stages, prepare some type of slideshow. Each slide would have additional information on it to display on a rotating basis. We would have to incorporate some additional TVs potentially at our recreation facilities. We do have one in Cardinal and one small one here. But we would have to factor in potentially a couple more depending on how interested committee and council is. But it is a way to avoid all those areas and potentially expand in the future to incorporate onto our website. It does impact quite a bit when we categorize and catalog all the items we currently have with any new ones coming in. Then we can build a database for the sport type, the venue, if it's historic, if it's current, past, present, if it's the type of equipment we put on our website. We can build potentially a database kiosk if we're looking to go down that path down the road. That would, of course, potentially be a capital investment in future years. But we're just trying to look at alternative methods that may be considered. I did pose a couple of questions for committee to consider today. What type of approach would you like? If you're going to be doing traditional, there's time frame to consider. If it's going to be rotating on season or the significance of the item, demand from the public. How are we going to retain these items, and as well as addressing the physical damage or any liability we have on them. We're going to be doing digital. There's consideration for minor costs to start off with this year for TVs. We can get the TVs for a couple $100 to wire them, so that's not too big of a concern. But in the future, if that does become something that community council does support, would you like us to consider expanding it onto a website page, like we do our bylaw repository, we can do something onto our recreation page, and then potentially down the road we will kiosk at a recreation location.
Good. So just so when I read this, it really felt like we were doing staff, like a staff function. Are you like when we do this part? So because normally I would expect that options would come back and we would just select through options. The traditional display feels to me like we're really getting heavy into the weeds of where we're picking trophy cases and hanging banners and boxing shirts, and we have to lay out all those rules, and that does not seem like a function of council. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Through the chair, no, we're just trying to get basics. Are you interested in the traditional display, which means before going to that route, I started looking at traditional, and I could write 10 different ways to Sunday on policies.
Sure.
So I'm trying to get direction from community and council. Are you interested in traditional displays, or are you interested in potentially going down the route of digital displays, which would be a totally different.
Okay. All right. So hearing that, then I think that helps probably a little bit more shape and guide the discussions. I certainly saw one or two hands up. So I think Deputy Mayor's was first, and I think Councilor Smith was second. So Fire.
Duly chair to the facility manager, excuse me. Mr. Spencer, which would be easier for you? Digital? Or the traditional?
To the chair, to the deputy, I would think the digital would probably be the better option. Going forward, it's just like today's society has gone more to the internet and the tech side of things where we may have a little bit more input as far as being able to put it up and have it up on the screen as opposed to filtering our walls and our canteen lobbies with memorabilia down the road.
Just changing.
Yeah, you just loop it, basically, and it would, there would have to be discussion about what was going to be acceptable and not acceptable, put it enough. Because if you turn around and you look at the trophy case behind you, it's not just the two arenas, like that trophy case there is based on things from basically the 70s and the 80s. All the trophies that are behind there, as well as everything else, so. But on a go forward basis, that's not saying you couldn't put those into the loop as well, they'd still stay there for now. But anything going forward new potentially would be on the digital, and I think that would be the better option. In my opinion.
Good.
And do the chair to the facility manager, again, Mr. Spencer, we could do a little story on it too, probably to do it better than what we had, just by putting up a sweater. Red birds, whatever, we could do a little
You
history.
wouldn't want to put a lot of information.
No, no,
The screen's gonna pop up and it's gonna stay there for, I mean, we can determine how long it's gonna stay up. You'll stay it for 30 seconds, so you're not gonna want to have a paragraph up there. You just want to have just a caption of what's there. So that the people can say, oh, okay, that's what that is, let's see what the next one is going to be. Yeah, stuff like that. So, it would be a better option.
thank you.
Councillor Smith.
That was basically the question I was gonna ask Mike, so he's answered it. But
Councillor Ward.
So when I read this on Saturday, that first paragraph, it kind of had me on the digital, but then I started right down. We should really, keep a database and see if we can make it interactive eventually. So you covered that, but I read that to the bottom of the page. So I mean, I think I'm in favor of that. And this interactive display will be something I'd like to see eventually, because I do think that that's the way we want to. That we're going anyways as a society. I did sort of think, and I know that this creates work, but it's not necessarily urgent work, but I do think it might be of some value for us to go back and also digitally then archive all the stuff we do have in the various arenas, so that we have that, so that we can then have, the same tool at both arenas and other places as well. So I mean, I think, it's not just arenas, we could, we could have sections where we focus on, this is the arena, and here's the pickleball, that's where it's at the, there's no difference. So, yeah, sports and yeah, exactly. So I think it's a great idea, so.
Good. Councillor Martin.
Couple of questions through the chair. How prevalent of an issue is this? Other than the two jerseys that we saw here a month ago, how often do you get asked to hang or put sports? So I'm just wondering, are we making policy just to make policy, or is it a real issue?
Through the chair to Councilor Martel. Since the new ingredient arena has been built, periodically I understand there might be one or two teams a year, sometimes more, that may win a big tournament or maybe be a league champ or a playoff champ. We don't allow those banners to go up at the ingredient arena. So it does happen periodically throughout the year. But it's primarily a pond. It's primarily for banners that they are currently winning in the day. And if they want to put them up, we just put them up in Spencer. And that's it. So as the deputy mayor indicated, going back to taking photos of all the current banners that we have up in Spencerville, some date back to the 80s and 90s. And we could have a different section on our website that has past victories and past winners, and whether or not it's categorized for hockey. There are some figure skating things up there in Spencerville as well. So I think it gives us a better option to broaden the scope of what we want to put out there.
So my other concern or my other thought would be that digital might sound easier initially. But it's also easier for the public where you can be inundated with, the newspaper clippings or, here's a piece of Gordy House hair that he dropped in the special. It seems easy, but it's still gonna, people will be more apt to email you a picture than they would be to say, here's my beloved jersey, you can have it now, it's, it's. I don't know how effective digital is gonna be.
As our clerk indicated, there would be a potential option for us to have the database so that they can log in and request stuff. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to print.
It still has to be looked at, though, it's still gonna take up staff time. I'm just, I'm not. But either way, I just don't want to make a policy for making a policy statement if it's not an issue to begin with. We might be better off just dealing with it the way we do now on an as it comes basis. You've been on council for how many years, Mr. Mayor? How often have you seen this?
Well, first of all, it really shouldn't come to me. As an elected official, it should come to staff, and the only time as an elected official, it should be discussed or possibly discussed with one of us would be if they weren't happy with the answer they got from staff. Other than that, I wouldn't expect to hear from it. I just expect to walk into the arena and see it happening.
Thank you.
To address a couple of those concerns. If council committee does determine to go one way or the other, one way to mitigate this, we mandated by council phase to delegate the duties to staff. We could have an internal administrative policy to determine what memorabilia would be acceptable, and then we determine it based on their submission as to whether or not it's appropriate.
Okay.
I think the digital is a great idea. I especially like the idea that if eventually you did go to kiosk route, you could do history as well, right? You could put some of the past stuff up there, and it's a little more interesting for some people to look back at what's going on and what's just going on right now. I think
certainly resounding for digital. I'm going to throw the curveball like I always do, though. I 100% support the digital displays. I think they're a fantastic idea. It gives us the opportunity to keep the arena clean like it is now, keep it modern and tidy looking. But being a banner guy, like you said, supporting the teams that did win championships last year and not hanging their banner, I just struggle with that. I always have. I mean, being a former player, I struggle with it. It creates your barn. It creates the it's part of having a home arena in my opinion. And I certainly think that when players come out and they look up, or even when they come for public skating and they look up and they see that, there is a layer of nostalgia that they're not going to get from looking at it on the TV. The digital form might be informative for those that didn't know, but for those that are coming back or that are utilizing the ice, I think that there is some merit in those banners, especially when you talk about the Spencerville ones, and the history going back into the 80s. And I think the deputy mayor said there might even be some baseball ones hanging in there as well. So, like things like that. And I know that there isn't much of a place in the Cardinal Arena now for them. That's always been a sticker for me. I seem to be the only one who thinks that they should go up though. So, but I certainly would support both. Actually, I love traditional banners. I love the tactile experience. I like things that you can see and feel, and you're walking the walking track. They're around you. You're walking among them, as opposed to just staring blankly at a TV. So I think that the digital display has its value and has its merits, especially when it comes to things like ownership and deterioration and theft, even, because I know that those are concerns. We've heard them, right, from people who donate, that they don't want them stolen, they want them locked, and that sort of stuff. And there definitely are issues for physical items that are there. So digital makes a lot of sense in those regards, but honoring the the youth and the kids and stuff that play there. I like that. Just my 2 cents. More discussion, anyone?
I don't think you're the only one, I agree with you. One man's clean is another man's sterile, you know.
I just wonder if there's not an opportunity to vote. Right, why can't you put the history and some of the other things that people want to donate onto the kiosks or the TVs? And then the teams. And then you'll vote.
Yeah, I think, like in my mind, I would support both, but in a clean and very tidy and well maintained, manner. I certainly like the way that the building looks now, but I also think that, like the shirt that Mr. Patrick brought, I do think that there should be a home for it in there somewhere, not just on the TVs. So. Only 2 votes though. Further? No? I don't think there's a support. So it sounds like the folks would like a little more info on digital.
If we have an direction to.
Good. Thank you everyone for your input. Good discussion on that. All right, moving on to the next one. We'll have a good discussion. And I would assume that this one would come to the treasurer. So Mr. Nicholson, do you want to give us, there's certainly a recommendation that's coming with this one tonight. So you want to give us a little background information on the 2023 budget approval possibility?
Will do. Fair. This first purpose for today is to review and finalize the township's operating capital budget for 2023. Just to give some background, committee has reviewed the draft capital budget operating budgets over 3 meetings, starting on January 9th with the pre-budget presentation and the latest meeting on February 21st. After that last meeting, 3 things that have been changed into the budget is the COLA was adjusted to 3% across the board for all employees except council. Council honorarium was given no increase. Insurance was adjusted to reflect the final quote, an annual premium increase of 11%. And added back into capital budget was the expansion of the parking lot for the Regional Center and building the dog park from that project. Estimated cost of the parking lot is $70,000. So with the backup, overall, the total operating revenue is projected to increase by 6.7%. Or just over $672,000. This includes a 2.63% increase in the tax levy and an increase of the transfers of operating reserves by $25,000. Operating expenses are projected to increase by 6.1% or just over $559,000. The main drivers of the increase in costs are salaries, insurance costs, and fuel costs. In aggregate, there is a net increase in operating surplus of $113,000, which helps fund the capital projects. The 2023 capital spend is projected to be $3.4 million, excluding the County Road 2 project. No taxation funded capital will be allocated to the County Road 2 project. The primary source of funding for that project will be grant funding at all levels, provincial, federal, and county. And we will draw $200,000 from the capital dedicated reserve. The net change in reserves is projected to be a decrease of $438,000 without County Road 2 and $638,000 inclusive of County Road 2. In relation, the 2022 budget forecast was a decrease of $588,000, so it represents more or less a $50,000 increase over the 2022 budget. Given the nature of the capital projects undertaken, the reserve draw is used up. The policy, we have to Section 290 of the Municipal Act states that for each year, a local municipality shall, in the year or immediately preceding year, prepare and adopt a budget, including estimates of all sums required during the year for the purposes of the municipality. For financial considerations, with the changes incorporated from budget meeting number 3, the 2023 township budget requires a tax levy increase of $182,222.36, or 2.63%. Impact to residential properties in 2023 will be an annual increase of $18.21 per $100,000 of assessed value. The recommendation that staff is asking is that committee recommends that council adopt the 2023 budget estimates with a 2.63% increase given the 2023 residential tax rate to balance the 2023 budget and direct staff to prepare bylaw.
Excellent, thank you. All right, let's open this for discussion. Who wants to start? Anyone in particular?
Okay, you're not gonna like what I have to say, I think, on this one. I think we've become quite familiar with these numbers, and I mean, I think we've had lots of discussion on, and at a 2.63% increase, I think I'm comfortable with that right here in front of us at this point. That's it.
You didn't think I was gonna like that?
No.
I'm very pleased with it. I expected a little higher, if you're not the honest truth, so. At 2.67, I'm more than thrilled. I'm excited, and in this day and age, especially when we're fighting. Everything that we've done really is around inflation, from salaries to heat to insurance, etc. So. I'm very pleased with that, so, thank you.
Not much I can say. We've discussed it like Council Ward said, and I'm good with it.
I like the overall number. There's still a few things I'm not super comfortable with actually in the items itself, but
I think now's the time to continue that conversation, so we ultimately, there's a recommendation on the floor, but we still have to continue the discussion. If there are areas that you're not comfortable, let's continue that debate and that discussion and make sure that all those voices have been heard on all of those items. And win or lose, we'll put the items to rest. And we'll move on, with the budget.
right now, I think the main thing that I have issue with is the $100K for the pool heaters. I can understand how the folks using the pool would certainly appreciate them, but for the population in general that I got hired to represent, nobody during this whole process has come up to me and said, Joe, we really need more pool heaters in Johnstown and Cardinal. People want roads, they want everything. If I went out and pulled 100 residents tonight, what's the best way to spend $100K? I'm almost certain none of them would say, 9 of them would say send the plows out soon. It just seems like a luxury rather than a necessity, and I'm not comfortable with it.
That's your list. Yeah. Karen, do you want to just give an update on where you are?
I kind of disagree with that. For sure. They're okay by me. I just think I don't think they're a luxury at all. I think they're, warranted. I mean, I grew up taking swimming lessons in very, very cold pools. And I had a son that was very tiny, and he had an awful time. He couldn't take lessons past the baby pool because he was so tiny that the water was too cold for him. So I mean, that's just me, but I think they're
Let's come back to that and have a discussion about it after. Do you have overall comments on the overall process?
No, I think the process is fine. I think the number's reasonable.
Okay, great. I think This is way easier than I thought it was gonna be. I think that staff has presented us through the meetings that we have had with a very well understood on both staff and on what council wants in their budget this year. I think in the years that I've sat at this table, it's been one of the smoothest and least divisive processes to get to a number that seems extremely reasonable in a very, very difficult year. So that's a compliment to staff on presenting and putting options and understanding, you know, the amount of work that you can do and that you can accomplish in a very, you know, difficult year and with the constraints that we have. I do want to comment that one of the reasons that we are able to do a lot of the work that we are going to do this year is because of the funds that were realized from the Port of Johnstown. We, you know, have an extra in our budget, an extra, you know, 585 from realized funds from grain surplus sales that equivalent, you know, to somewhere in the 8% range. That gave us a very good amount of flexibility to achieve the goals and the mandates of the group at this table in very difficult times, and it helps offset the difficult decisions that were made at the United Counties. So everyone understands the United Counties budget passed at 6.87%, 2.5 which is dedicated specifically to the Mapleview Lodge in Athens. 1.5% of which gets added to a previous total of 2% for dedicated infrastructure levy. So they're doing 3.5%, but 1.5% of the 6.87 is going directly towards infrastructure levy, which ultimately will be used by the Highway 43 project. And the next number that is extremely high in that group of numbers is it's 2.6, and it goes to WSIB claims for paramedic services for unfortunately leave in WSIB does not cover PTSD, and there are many members of the force off, and the WSIB claims go towards that increase goes towards that. When you add that up, that's virtually a no increase from the United Counties, and it's still at just under 7%. So those aren't projects or anything that we're going to see benefit from this year in Edwardsburg Cardinal. But next year we will see great benefit in the Highway 2 project. And in the years to come in 2024, we will see a good portion, another portion from Blair Road to Cardinal get paved as well. So there are, you know, good numbers coming in the future from that infrastructure levy, but theirs is 7%. Ours is ultimately a 2.63, and that brings us down to what the treasurer noted, which is a 3.612 rate, which is basically half of inflation. So to think that we can get the amount of work done in this budget for half of what inflation is fantastic. So well done to staff, and I'm thankful that we have, you know, an asset like the Port of Johnstown to help support our taxpayers, you know, not suffer the brunt of such high interest rates. I think the only other thing, and I will come back to Councillor Martel, because I I certainly was on that same page, but. And I really like, this is the one thing that well, there's two things that I struggle with in this budget, and one is a need for another 4-wheel drive truck. But I suspect that that's a battle for next year's budget. And I struggle with the pool heaters, but having that discussion with every single person that I had the discussion with, aside from maybe Councillor Martel here at the table tonight, I'm the only person that thinks that it's a bad idea. So, you know, and we certainly had a mandate when we, as a group, went out to increase services. These weren't the services that in my opinion, that I was attempting to increase, but it certainly increases the service level for the benefit of the users. We've been told that it will increase the usership of both of the pools. It'll make the users far more comfortable, and I believe wholeheartedly, in my discussions with other municipalities about their pool heaters, it'll help them retain staff, and staff is one of the hardest things, I think, to get and keep right now. I know our dollars probably aren't where they need to be, but dollars and maybe a little bit of heat will help keep some of the staff that we have. So ultimately, as difficult as this is for me to say, I'm going to go with the group, and I am going to support the heaters in this budget. If we can get all of this done, I said I would support the group. I'm going to support the group. If we can get all of this work done for a 2.63 increase, I think we're well on our way to doing a great job for a very small increase in a very difficult time. So I'll be supporting the resolution when it comes forward. I guess having said that, just a couple of highlights, because I think it's worthwhile highlighting this for anybody that might be, you know, going to watch it. You know, there's a replacement of a T5 dual axle truck in there as well, and I think that that's you know, an enormous investment. Probably won't come this year in this year's budget. I think the expectation is that it will come for next year, but there's a good portion of those dollars put aside for this year. I will say this for the people in the north part of the township on Totem Range Road, there is the inclusion of $132,000 in that budget that'll get much work or much needed work on Totem Range Road completed. That project, I believe, has been being kicked along since we came on council, if I'm not mistaken. Our deputy mayor, it's certainly been there for a while, so it's nice to get that done. You know, there's not a lot as far as paving projects go. I think it's the finishing of Mary, Edison, and the Highway 2 project. But in discussions with the CAO and the treasurer, I am assured that I will have close to $1 million in paving projects for the 2024 budget, and I'm looking forward to seeing those numbers coming through as well. So you know, just looking in my notes with respect to fuel, you know, that in this budget you've written the fuel number up. This addresses that. That was a difficult, you know, number this year. I think it was in my estimate, it was over 20% extra in fuel charges alone, and that's, you know, obviously an overage in last year's budget. And that's been added into this one as well, which increases that line item. And I will commend I'm assuming the director of operations. It may be the road super, or could even be the CAO for the extra $127K that's going into the hardtop maintenance program as well, for roads that you know, have been worked on so that they don't fall apart further along or sooner than they're supposed to. That's, you know, over what was spent last year. That's a pretty hefty increase, and you know, to be able to get that extra added in again for only a 2.63 increase is worthwhile noting. And lastly, I think I'll shut up, but I will say, well, two things. One that we increased and we added into a valuable asset, which is their libraries at 15K. And which to me is an extra 15K going into the libraries will help them improve and keep them the usership up and make them as valuable as they are. And lastly, it was great that staff listened and that we were able to spread that 3% increase across all of township employees. So again, I think that's it for my notes, and Brian's already gone. There is a 100K increase in the fire department as well, that ensures our first responders get at least minimum wage for their valued efforts every time they go down the road. So I think that should be noted as well. We're getting an awful lot done for 2.63. We should be proud, staff should be proud, council should be proud. We said we were here for change. We're bringing that change. This is the first budget of it. So I think well done to everyone involved. Okay, does anyone else want to comment before the resolution gets called? Final thoughts, final comments? Anyone?
No, I mean, I think you're right. It was a difficult budget, right? I mean, but there's a lot of stuff in here, but we also talked about the capacity of our ability to do all these things. And so I think we picked a balance, including the pool heaters, which I suspect is and don't keep them wrong, don't quote me on this, but I suspect that's a bit of an easier thing for us to accomplish this year than say doing it on the road as well. So I think we had to come up with that balance, and I think we got there. So like I said, there's some things I'm not as comfortable about, but I'm okay with the fact we made a decision and we'll move on. So yeah.
Well said. Thank you for those comments. All right, so there is a resolution. Let's see here. I talked so long, my iPad shut off. All right, and the recommendation reads as this: the committee recommend that council direct staff to proceed with a public. No, that's not 23. That's the next one. I'm sorry. Thanks for the sound, so I appreciate it. That committee recommends that council adopt the 2023 budget estimates with a 2.63 increase in the 2023 residential tax rate to balance the 2023 budget and direct staff to prepare the necessary bylaw.
So
moved by Deputy Mayor Dillabaugh, seconded by Councillor Chris Ward, and I think all budget votes should be recorded. So can I request a recorded vote? Is the mayor allowed to request a recorded vote? Thank you very much. And so I'll start to my left. Councillor Ward, how do you vote?
I vote yay.
Yes. Yay. Councillor Smale.
yay.
Councillor Martel.
Yeah.
And I vote yay as well. 2.63 is. Well done, staff.
Thank
Good
you,
job.
guys.
Well done to everyone involved in the process. Good job. So how long will the pools be? Sorry, Mike, I couldn't do this.
Tenacity.
It's just me, Mike. I apologize. All right, so we are moving on to amending the permit fees and the update of that, which is item 70, I believe. And who will be CBO speaking to that? Yes. All right, Dwayne, it's all your CBO.
Yeah, I'm here, as you recall, in February, I presented a staff report to propose some changes to the building code. Permit fee mainly with regard to the industrial, commercial, institutional buildings. And, there, we had discussion about, comparisons of, permit fees from other municipalities and further request that I do a further look at that. What I've done is I've reviewed permit fees structures for 7 of our neighboring municipalities. Like refer to the schedule that I attached to this staff report that basically lays out the fee structures for those other 7 municipalities. There's some interesting points to look at there. One of them is the fact that the permit fees are when you can do the comparison, there's a quite a variation in those permit fees, and there's also different methods of calculating those permit fees. What I'm also attached to the staff report is a comparative schedule showing what a permit fee would be for each of those 7 municipalities based on a 6,000 square foot building with a value of $1,852,000. That's the way you can compare those fees, and basically our fees at the moment are, if you go by construction value, are quite high compared to some of the other municipalities. What I'm proposing there is that we look at the fee calculation a little bit different of how we have been doing it, and then it's basically coming up with a flat rate based on what the minimum cost would be to a permit, like the whole process for the permit, with a little extra added to bring it to a little bit more of a fair price. When you do those comparison, it kind of brings me into the mid-range of permit fees across municipalities. I should point out that I think hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at that report that I made. Those numbers there pretty well reflect what it's costing to actually process the permit. Then that goes from the date that we receive it to when we issue the final occupancy or the final report on the permit. But those fees are basically what we collect from the department, but it also covers areas that are where we don't collect fees, and those are things like issuing compliance reports, not compliance reports, but non-compliant audits. We also enforce the bylaw, the zoning bylaw, and we also enforce the property standards. We don't have the property standard bylaw, but Section 15 of the Act still requires us to deal with unsafe buildings. So all that work is done, and it's like there's no fee factor for that. So that's why we have to have our permit be a little bit higher than what it generally would be just to process a building permit. The other area that there was a little bit of discussion about was also with regards to compliance reports for buildings between 10 square meters and 15 square meters. We looked at that again, and it is a compliance report. We at the moment charge $50 for a compliance report, so I'm recommending that we reduce the fee that I had suggested to $50 for bringing more compliance with the convention. basically when it was. Features. One of the ways that information. I think that overall, it's a fair request for the structure is more in line, it's a lot fairer. And the other issue that I think we should realize too is that the building permit fees that we're proposing here really only cover building up to 6,000 square feet. After 6,000 square feet, building category classification changed. And it becomes a more complex building with requires more complex reviews and even field reviews. We may end up having to retain a structural engineer or even a fire safety engineer or something. So you get into those situations where you're building where you can 6,000. There's additional fees that would basically would have to be negotiated at the time for those various structures. So this is what we're recommending, and we're recommending that procedure go to a public meeting and present it to the public.
Thank you to the CBO. Just so before I open up the floor to comments and discussion, if there is any, just so one of the main item that was changed in my understanding is item 4 on the list, correct? Right. And the original, I don't have a copy of the original one, but it was going from 40 to 80. 40 cents to 80 cents, I believe. Am I correct in thinking that? Or $9 per $1,000 of construction value. So that was the $9 in the original one. The $9 of the 1,000, was it in the original? Like our road?
Chair, yes, it would have been the previous file. This is the current bylaw. Would see the 40 cents per square foot per $9 per 1,000. Whatever the item, we have 2. Now, with that said, in certain circumstances, some discretion that can be used by the CEO with respect to that.
Right. This number 4 only speaks to buildings 6,000 feet and smaller, 6,000 square feet smaller. Right.
Sort of the initial larger structures in excess of about 3,000 or 26,000 square feet. Probably be more on a case by case basis that they'll have to be part of the discussion. With also with respect to those properties. Depending on the specialty that we may be required to engage.
So if a company had 100,000 square feet of warehouse space right now and wanted to come and do an addition of another 100,000 that connects directly to the original 100,000, which grouping would it fall under? Sure. It would be an addition. It's already let's just say one of our big places are already there. They want to do an addition onto an existing property they already have.
Be number 6,
That's what I see too.
because it's
So it would be number 6.
renovation.
Certainly, you're speaking of an addition, would be under number 4, what about 6,000, you're talking about 1,200,000, and it would certainly revert back to further discussion, because we want to likely engage, special qualifications to undertake that review within those inspections.
And in the past, the practice when it came to such a large area like that certainly worked without the confines of the bylaw. Is that? I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything.
So I think certainly through the chair, I certainly think that, in those circumstances that potentially the developer in that particular sense would have been paying those special fees correct, as opposed to necessarily in a permit fee. And we're probably struck with respect to an hourly rate, whatever the case may be, to engage that special qualifications.
So, yeah, and I think my concern is that if we have, you know, a major person that's warehousing in our area that's looking to put on a major addition to that, is the way that this is written, is that going to be like, the way that I read it is that it's going to have a huge impact, and it's going to be a huge dollar value for them to do that compared to what they would have originally paid. That's my concern.
So they could, chair, I would think that would not be the case, because if you're talking about a large expansion in that regard, we're going to have to engage, especially, any engineers or whatever the case may be. So it would be outside of what our current inspectors or CBOs would be able to accomplish. So we have to enter into an agreement regardless. So I think this captures the 6,000 square feet, sort of captures what I would say the current CBO would comfortably do the design review and inspections. When it gets above that, it's into a specialty area that we would have to.
Yeah, well, that's better clarity for me. That's good. That makes me more comfortable on that. So then we would expect any of the next, so does the same 6,000 square feet rule apply to buildings accessory or renovations and repairs to existing? Let's say, you know, there's a new docking station or a new receiving station put on one of them that's over 6,000 square feet. Do they pay 80 cents a square foot for that, or would 5 and 6 still qualify that way as well?
So if it's an addition or an extension, 4 would apply. If it's an accessory building, 5 would apply. And typically, when renovations and repairs are of a smaller dollar value, and therefore 6 would apply.
So we're saying that 5 and 6 wouldn't be the increase, 6 for sure wouldn't be the increase of space. It would be just the renovation of existing space.
I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, yes, no, certainly, CBO may be able to clarify in a little bit more detail, but that's certainly my My understanding from the question that what I know, maybe particular and all other.
So to use, I'll go to the CBO. then. I just want to get this straight in my head to make sure of what I'm saying yes to. So if the township hall, I know it's not taxable, but if it was a business and it had the damage done to it that it did have, and it had to be repaired, to get their permits, number 6 would apply to it.
Yeah, I have no fault. That's an error. When I was reviewing the schedule, I never looked at that one. That should actually be, it should go back to the, basically what is in number 4. It would be the same. Based on a minimum permit fee of $1,000 and 25 cents. A square foot, or in this case, it would be 25 cents for every $1,000 of the construction. Yeah, I'll fix that. That's good.
I just have trouble understanding that one just a little. So did you?
No, I just for clarification, so sorry, number 6 would be the same as number 4 as far as cost.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then 5 is, sorry, to the chair.
Yeah.
5 is would be that same fee we talked about there for an accessory building, unless it was a bigger structure, for instance, which case it would follow the rules.
Maybe I could just mention things also. Building code allows for municipalities to engage a company known as a registered code agency. In other words, it's a company could commit and actually manage the project for us for a larger scale building. And that's where we would end up with a negotiation with the developer, because we would actually engage somebody to oversee that project, and then we just basically charge them the cost.
And ultimately, the fees are set up to basically break. The idea is to break even. Correct? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm still in all the time.
It's okay. So it was a good segue from where I was going. We've had some discussion about the fees needing to recoup the development fees. In other words, taxpayer can't pay for development increases. I think is the general rule we talked about, right? So, but when I had a bit of a conversation, a few conversations along the way with various people, various staff, but that cost we're talking about is just the development aspect of it. It doesn't necessarily cover the zoning enforcement and things like that. It's not supposed to cover that, or it's not supposed to cover that. Sorry.
Well, the act says that the municipality can charge a fee for the enforcement of the building code. And when you look at the Building Code Act, the applicable law basically holds the zoning bylaw under it. And there's other applicable law that we have to deal with. So we have to generate some funds to cover those costs, because shouldn't come out of the tax rate.
I agree. I think I agree with that statement. I worry a little bit because I read somewhere that in here, pardon me, that that part of this the effort on the residential side was to where we weren't, and maybe if I misjudged, that's fine. We weren't charging for basement square footage. Now we want to charge for basement square footage. Is that true? Or like,
no, basement square footage is considered part of the main house.
And we've always done it that way?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I just thought there was an extra in there.
It's the second floor, I think you're right.
So the second floor is not always charged?
You charge extra for the second floor, and the third floor.
Okay, no, that's fine. As long as that isn't changing. I thought there was a change. So I was thinking, if we're trying to encourage the residential development, then asking more money for that would be a problem, obviously. So no, that's okay then.
All right, so I'm gonna look to my left then for more comments on on items, well, any items if you really want, but I think we've limited.
No, I'm good.
Discussion at this point. Everyone's good.
We're in the ballpark with other municipalities, so. Yeah. I'm very pleased with that.
And I think the last one that I had on my list, just to make sure that this committee was comfortable with the change, but that's to number 22, which basically is the compliance review for buildings that go from what was the old bylaw. 10 to 15 square meters. Just to that new increase, so they need a $50 compliance review.
I can know that.
But that was better, yeah. My only question is, and I read, read through it for. What exactly will the compliance review do? What do they get for the compliance review?
Depends on where you are in the municipality, it'll actually remove the location on the property, if there's a lot line. Location on the property with regards to septic systems and wells. There is a requirement in the Building Code Act that small buildings be anchored. So there's an inspection done to make sure that the property anchored to the ground. And I think that's what it. Oh, the other one will be if it's close to a waterway, it may be a requirement for the conservation department to do a review.
Get your $50.
All right. Anyone else? No. Okay, so now I think we have a recommendation, all right? Sorry, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest as presented, as amended through discussion. And I think the items 4 and 5 from my under parcel, 4 and 6, no matter the basically like that, just merge those into one. I don't.
And everyone agrees with the changes to the rest. I believe. Oh, I did have one more question. Sorry, it's 8B. And it goes back to the barns and the machine sheds. And that item stayed at 95, which is the old number, and didn't go to the 115. It's the only one that remains at the old fee number. Was there a reason behind that?
What number was that?
It's number 8B.
Through the chair, I anticipate that it's just simply typo and
I agree.
Okay, so
It'll be correct.
So do we need to see? Do we need to see bylaw again to, or do we need to see the paper, the report again to pass it, or with those changes, are we? We should be good. So
should committee be comfortable enough? I would just
I'm comfortable.
know with as amended, which we will combine item 4 and 6 together, and we will make the adjustment to recommend against the minutes as all other things.
What, excuse me, what's B then, 8B, I'm sorry. What's the base rate of 95 and 40 square foot, is that wrong?
the 95 should be 115.
Base 89 should be 150.
Okay. But the square footage of 40 cents stays the same? Okay.
Okay, so nodding your heads around the table, they're okay with. No, that's a question. Sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
Okay, so you're good with those changes? I can't ask, so I can't pull.
Yeah, I think yes, we're comfortable to take that to a public meeting, and depending on the feedback, we will be back to committee.
Okay. Do we need a motion or?
Yeah,
We do.
I'm trying to find it.
I got it.
I read it halfway before.
I'll give it to you then, 23. It's a really one too, I'm not getting it.
Did you have a question? Laura?
No, I was gonna say, so, you know, we would just give them extra when we approve this and it goes to that. Hoping anyways. It's not gonna-
Yes. All right, so, so I get rid of the word presented and change that to amended, is that correct? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so, so the recommendation will read like this. That committee recommend that council direct staff to proceed with a public meeting to present the proposed amendments to the building permit fees as amended. All right, so I need a move. Moved by Councillor Joe Martell, seconded by Councillor Waddy Smale. Further discussion? And seeing none, all in favor? Yeah, it's good. All right. All right, now we should fly. Give me 1 second to get to the right page.
Page 34, right?
I don't know if I trust you.
I don't know.
7C, which is the council remuneration report to the treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to give a background on this, township passed bylaw 2020-12 on February 24th, 2020. This bylaw established the outlines of roles and responsibility pertaining to reimbursement of eligible expenses of council members. Section 9B for the bylaw indicates that the treasurer will prepare a quarterly report that will be reviewed by council on the website. The first quarter report is not presented to council for review due to insufficiency of expenses for the period. Section 6A. Bylaw states all expenses shall be reimbursed upon submission of a completed and signed expense form. The form to be submitted within a reasonable time after conference or seminar. Included in the check. In addition, section 284 of the municipal act requires the treasurer to provide council prior to March 31st with a statement of remuneration and expenses paid in the previous year. Each member of the council and each person appointed by the municipality may serve as a member of any body, including the local board. The attached statement shows all expenses and honorariums at the end of the year, subject to adjustment by the auditors. This report will be posted on the township website as public record stated in section 284, section 4 of the municipal. And attached is the breakdown of the expenses.
Before I come in, I'll open it up to the group table. Anyone comments, concerns? Items on
So those are transparent.
No, but I just make sure we know who was amended earlier this afternoon. We saw an amended copy, but just extra things. But I guess it's, I assume those extra costs for mileage and other just onboarding new council, is that essentially what?
Correct.
Oh,
The acting charges for the
sorry, through the check.
I think, again, like the deputy mayor said, through transparency, I do have one small question, and it's for the Rideau St. Lawrence board number. Is that, so that number is accurate?
That is the information that we received through the chair from Rideau St. Lawrence. So we don't, the township doesn't pay that. It's paid by Rideau St. Lawrence. So that was the number that they provided.
Rideau St. Lawrence, so Rideau, so that's the part that I'm going for, is Rideau St. Lawrence actually pays that dollar value,
That's correct.
and we report it because we own a portion of Rideau St. Lawrence.
That is correct.
So through the chair, because we were appointed the board member.
Right.
That would have been.
So are we reimbursed then that 9,400? Because it's included in the total line, right?
through the chair, this report is just, what we received, not the source of. See that? That would be correct from the industry.
Okay.
And they're very similar to the, Johnstown. It would be
From the.
through, not through the dealership.
Okay, yep, all right, good enough, yep, thanks for that clarification. Okay, yeah, I think everybody's good, we can move on. Do we have to receive that, or is it just we don't have to receive it? No, we're good, and that gets posted to the township website, right? Okay. So moving on then to 7D, which is the Cardinal and Industrial Park drinking water MECP inspection reports. I believe, Mr. Robert, you're gonna speak to that?
Thank you. Yeah, everything's right here. This is an information item on November 10, 2022, and announced focus inspection of the Cardinal Industrial Park water systems undertaken by Miss Monica Howell from the provincial officer inspector for the Ministry of the Environment. The inspection looks at compliance with various applicable provincial acts, regulations, permits, trading, and certification. Both inspections received no areas of non-compliance with regulatory requirements or any recommended best practices. Both systems received a 100% inspection rating and 0% risk rating. All ratings are published annually in the Ministry Chief Drinking Water Inspector's annual report, and they are included in this information. I'd just like to acknowledge the efforts of both our department and also the council in achieving results.
Awesome, thanks, thanks, Eric. Comments and questions regarding these two reports? No, anything different? No, Chris?
Thank you. 100% is good. So, I mean, thank you. All I can write down about my weekend efforts was to thank both you and your staff for a great job well done on this. Appreciate that. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I certainly echo those comments in mine. Congrats both to Mr. Rummerman and Mr. Shaw for achieving a perfect score, 100%. In respect to both those reports. And I said, like Mr. Ward, that you can't do much better than that. So fantastic work to all. We'd like to see these reports. Good. All right. And is there a recommendation? Those nothing. Eh? Do we have to receive them? Okay, let's review them. And so moving on then to the combined annual summary and the drinking water report. So do that. Yep.
For the chair, this is the action item. This is to receive the 2022 Prescott Water System Annual Summary Report. Owners of municipal drinking water systems are required to ensure that no later than February 28th of the following year, the annual report is prepared in accordance with Section 11 of Code Reg 170.03. Additionally, by March 31st of each year, a summary report also has to be prepared. For drinking water systems that supply water to different municipalities, this report is to be made out by the operating authority and then provided to the receiving jurisdiction's owner. The town of Prescott's water system supplies water to the Edwardsburg Industrial System for residents of New Wexford and the Industrial Park. The report must list a summary of sample program operational data. It also includes requirements under the Act, Prescott's drinking water permit, drinking water license, and any provincial orders that are applicable or not satisfied during the period of the report. Anywhere where the standards not meet, it must be also summarized in this report. So I guess what we just wanted to present you Prescott's water system report. Again, it wasn't prepared by us, but it's presented to you.
Thank you again, Mr. Allen. Questions and concerns with the Prescott drinking water system annual report? Okay, I do have a couple of questions and I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer them, but first, 100% on Prescott's part as well. Well done. It does on page 44 of 99, under the QEMS external audit. From August 5th, that 5 minor opportunities for improvement were identified and that they have been addressed, but it doesn't show anywhere that I could find in the report where and how they were addressed and what exactly they were. Maybe we can find that out, or they'll address that at the next water meeting.
I
with
can,
us.
I can find that out. I don't think they're required to list that in this report, but I will find out what those OFIs were. Again, their OFIs only for interest, meaning that they don't have to
Okay,
address them, but they did just to. Open them up.
that's why they're not on there. That's why they're not on there. So it's more of a curiosity.
Okay, I can.
Yeah, and I will say the same to the folks that run Prescott's water plant then as well. Well done, 100%. It's good. It's nice to know that all along the way, especially for our industrial partner folks in New Wexford, that they have a good, safe supply of drinking water. So good. Oh, you got something?
But just that it was good to see this report because, you know, it talks about their capacity and you know, to the main point with regards to our industrial park, for instance, you know, it shows that there is some room there should we need something down the road. But anyways, it was just more of a statement that it was good to see the capacity of this report as well.
Yeah, good. Thanks for those comments. Good catch too. So there is a recommendation with this, and the recommendation reads that committee recommends that council receive and review the 2022 water annual summary report for the Prescott water system. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Chris Ward, seconded by Councillor Joe Martell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Good. All right, so moving on then to the DWQMS commitment and endorsement statement. Again, I believe. Sorry, what did I do wrong this time?
Mr. Chair, not looking up to see if I can.
Oh, I don't, my apologies, sorry. Is that before or after I called the question? My apologies.
Clarify with respect to something before. There's two, we'll call it mandated portions that must be included in the summary report. And that is any areas of non-compliance. And then also with respect to capacity. So that's really what that is the two main areas for decision-making purposes, right? For the reaching capacity, or there's areas of non-compliance that need to be corrected. Everything else within those reports are what we would call option. So that's all. Okay. Nothing impacting the recommendation.
No, but thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for the additional clarity. It's much appreciated. Okay, so then now we can move on to 7F, which is the DWQMS commitment endorsement, and I believe that's back there again.
Through the chair, this would be an action item. In 2002, Justice Dennis O'Connor recommended an inquiry that all operating authorities develop and implement a quality management system that promotes public health and provides consistent good practices in managing and operating a potable water system. Our original operational plan was developed to the MSC in June 15, 2009 for approval, and in 2011 we received correspondence that our operational plan met the requirements under the Safe Drinking Water Act. In 2017, the MECP implemented changes to the DWQMS system. All operating authorities again had to be audited to the new standard by 2019, which we were in 2008. The DWQMS is based on a plan to check and improve process. So the first plan and do make up a lot of the DWQMS system. So one of the requirements is that a policy be developed that commits to the safe and distribution of safe and potable drinking water within our system. There's also a requirement for the system to be endorsed by council and top management. There also needs to be a requirement to have a QMS representative, so in this case, your Assistant Chief Aaron Campbell is our QMS rep. The system also requires a procedures on document and record control, how we are retaining records, how we are disposing of records. Number 6, which would be our drinking water system, our plan must have a full system description of every part of our system from source right through the tap, including the water atlas. 7, risk assessment, which is a big one, is one of our annual reviews. So we have to review and identify any potential risks to our water system from source to tap and identify mitigations that we have in place to reduce those risks. That's a review that's done annually. We also have organizational role and structures. We have to have in our plan clear identification of each role that person plays in our system, right from top management right down to operator. We also have to have training requirements, competencies on how we train our staff through our individual licenses. We also have personnel coverage, which this, our system has to have a procedure in place of how we are ensuring that we have coverage 24/7 in the event of an emergency. Communication being a big one is how our system is being communicated to the owner, to right down to the residents. We also have to have identify all essential suppliers and services that are required to maintain our system. Our next biggest review is review and provision of infrastructure. This is done on an annual basis where we have to assess our current infrastructure needs and also our future. Where do we need to look at in the next 5 years, put our money, put our time to invest. We also have sampling, testing, and monitoring, which are whole significant amount of procedures on how we sample in our system, how we monitor all the important factors related to fluoride in our system. We also have procedures in place regarding calibration and maintaining our equipment. Another big part of our QMS is emergency management. We need to have procedures on how we're going to respond to this. We also have a management review, which is a management review is very important. It's a review that summarizes all other findings from all previous reviews during the year and identifies any action items that we need to address. The second big part of our QMS system is audits. We have 2 audits, one being an internal audit, which I am the auditor for our system. The whole point of an audit is to either identify non-conformances to the standard, or as we talked about earlier, OFIs or interest. We do have a second audit that is done by our external auditor, and this is part of a 3-year audit cycle. Year 1 is our accreditation audit, so that is where an auditor will come on site and do a full audit of our system, and that is important because we require accreditation to run our system. All operators already do that. We also have year 2 and year 3. Our external audits. So they don't necessarily do a thorough audit of your system, but they'll take parts of your system and do an audit. So right now we are on year 1, which is full on-site accreditation audit, which will be done on June 5th and June 6th of this year. So part of why we're here is that we're looking for a recommitment of the BWQS system, which we typically do after each election cycle, or if there's something significantly changed in that BWQS system. Lots of information there. I didn't want to read a word for word, but it's all.
It's good, actually. It's very good information. All right, through the table again, and I'll start this.
Might as well.
You're gonna talk.
I'm okay.
Fair enough.
Okay, I mean, I've spent sadly decades, I shouldn't say sadly, it's good experience talking about QMS and CIPs and all those processes and you know, managing several projects following sort of those as well. And I mean, you know, 100% doesn't come easy. And I think it's because you continue to do these kind of efforts that's what keeps us there. So I don't have much to say except for the fact that you have certainly my support, and that's at a 3-year total of, I don't know, just under $6,000, I guess it would be, or just under $7,000. It's money well spent to make sure that we keep as good as we are today.
Councilor Smith.
To the mayor to Eric. I just got a question on number 17, where it says recording equipment and calibration and maintenance. You guys do that, or I notice in here it says or third party contractor. Are you qualified to calibrate?
We do a combination in-house, third parties, so typically anything related to flow meters. A regulatory component of it, we do have to third party. Company. Typically our analyzers that are provisioned are going to be doing in-house monthly or sooner provided.
Further anyone? Seeing none. All right, there is a recommendation with this one as well. And the recommendation is that committee recommends that council one, pass a resolution renewing its commitment to the drinking water quality management system for the Cardinal Water and Edwardsburg Industrial Park Water Systems, and two, authorize staff and top management to sign element 3 of the operational plan to confirm endorsement. I need a mover and a secondary. Moved by Councillor Smale, seconded by Councillor Ward. Further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor? Good. Again, I say the same thing all the time. I could push a little button on repeat, but we're well done. And good, great. You always present excellent reports. So I like them well done. So we're on to item G, and this one is the RSL WS agreement. Who will be speaking to this one? Mr. CEO. You will be, okay. Then fire away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a little brief background on how this agreement came to be, and really sort of precipitated the universal in 2013, and using what we would consider at that time, and it still is sort of the state of the art system in respect to the leveraging the smart meters that communicate back the water meter readings. So this the agreement that was signed back then sort of touches base on real estate one's responsibility with respect to customer service, billing, the exchange of monies, insurance, and should it come to the need of either party, what will take place in that termination in that particular circumstance. It's basically 1 year. Today, certainly, I would say for the most part, it's been mutually beneficial to both parties to continue on this agreement. The only real changes with respect to that is the addition of a clause in the body of the agreement that speaks to if the flow of money extends beyond that typical 60-day period, that there's either some type of communication between real estate works and the municipality with respect to things a little additional time, although if agreed upon on those parties that extension exists, but otherwise there would be some type of flowing that money. And mainly the main reason for that institution is to ensure that there is good communication. And one of the things that we certainly want is that the cash to be received into our accounts as opposed to the second change is really with respect to the schedule. Basically, it results to a $13,000 increase over what we would currently paying for around 27,000 to 40,000, and split out over the Cardinal water system based on the industrial park water here that we would see once perform physical non-metering on a monthly basis. It's not, it's not really significant. They don't have material or something that, to the operation and feasible in circumstance. One of the items that we also did undertake was for some review to ensure that that the hydro system was not subsidizing water and sewer. And we're sort of indicating the same with respect to what's good for one side is good for another, and that's the reason why we want to ensure that people on the basis that are as it means not the subsidizing the hydro system. But I would say 95% of the data is laid out and exactly the same as we do that. Looking to authorize the
Good. I'll open it to questions. I just did. You want to go ahead?
Sure. I think there's, if I'm not mistaken from various conversations we had with RSL, that there's a third benefactor and that it does the users of the system as well, like the service fee, and I think they get it for reasons cheaper than on the bigger organization of Ontario Hydro. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a small cost increase. I get that, but I think it's going to be beneficial for us to maintain this product. So
Okay, this end. Nope, no. So just so that I'm clear, there's an increase for 13,000 for 2023. What, and it says that increase is split. What? So it's for, I mean, is it for what said it says infinite? Like the only background behind why there's an increase of 13,000 says that it'll be covered in financial concerns, but it doesn't really say what they are, other than CPI adjustments and services performed. So do we have an understanding exactly of what exactly the 13K increase is for?
So with Rio San Juan, they did a review with respect to what their full and true costs were with respect to producing the SAP license fuel vehicle on the items based on what we've done. And what they indicated was that at the 27,000 mark, that they were not fully recouping the cost of what it was to in that 30,000. That it really has to be straight for 2023 to capture that amount, and then moving forward is CPI and beyond CPI.
So 2 to 3%.
Yes, and also set up a processing for instance, when our subdivisions are online, we have an additional number of users that mechanism online.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Mine was just more for I got that it was the 27 to 43 catch up or 40 catch up. Is probably what that represented, but it was more the what's 24, 25, 26 look like. It's so the theory is that it's going to be CPI.
That would be the theory, unless there is what I would consider a substantial increase in number of users or decrease, which I would anticipate that we won't see.
Yeah. All right. So there is a recommendation with this one as well. And the recommendation is that committee recommends the council authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute the agreement as attached. I need a mover, moved by Councillor Martel, seconded by Councillor Smale. Further discussion? All in favor? On to the winter sand supply tender. And is that CAO or Director of Ops? Or Bureau of Alternative Mobility, sorry, Mr. Shaw, and on on to you to give us a brief outline of that time.
Thank you, Eric. The purpose of this action item is to award the 2023 tender for supply of winter sand to Willis Kerr Limited. Background, the request for tender to supply the township with up to 3,300 tons of winter maintenance sand issued February 15, 23. We closed March 7th. There were 3 proponents that placed bids. With Willis Kerr being the lowest at $18.60 a ton. It's up from about $17.74 last year, representing a 5% increase. Proposed 20 budget includes $160,000 for winter maintenance, salt and sand materials. The township is included in the contract extension of 1 year to secure a unit price of $104 per ton for salt, and $99 per ton in the last portion of the contract. So it's an increase of 5%.
And there is a recommendation, and that recommendation is that committee recommends that council award the winter sand tender EC-PW-23-03 to Willis Kerr Limited at the unit price of $18.60 per metric ton, and authorize staff to execute any necessary contract documents. Questions, concerns, comments, Deputy Mayor?
I just have, like, I guess from my own, that's a lot of difference in price, $11,000 from the 2 companies. From Tackleberry Thompson's to Willis Kerr. Why so much? What's the difference? Your own pit?
Through the chair, in the case of Tackleberry Sons, they sold their closest pit recently to Tomlinson. So their pits, I think the closest ones is Athens. Kerr has a pit in Hallville, I believe. I'm not sure if this one's closer.
So Tackleberry's hauling on 43 in Temple, is that right? Is that the pit they sold?
Pardon me.
Tackleberry's pit was sold on 43, doesn't
I
believe.
believe 43. Sold it
I
all.
just find such a big difference.
I think it's got to do with logistics and the fact that Willis Kerr is kind of a new player this year. I don't believe he was entered into the competition in past years, so I kind of picked it up. Actually noticed his fit driving into Ottawa one day, so added him to the list. And that's
Nice.
Thank you.
Further questions? Yeah.
To the chair to the Director of Operations, that Willis Kerr, where are they located at?
I think it's just the north of Hallville, they have their sand pit.
Okay,
They also have a stone pit or quarry in the township up on this is Smith Road. Yeah,
Smith and-
well, just off.
Smith and Buckley.
Yeah.
Good. Further? Hear none. My only question to you, Mr. Shaw, is if, and I'm assuming this amount will be enough, but if it's not enough, do we have the option to purchase more at that same price?
We're allowed in the, you look in the operation, we can get up to 500,000 metric tons more, but we have in past contracts more than that.
Right. Okay. Okay. I think that on my notes, I had that we did it last year, but I didn't go back and read through.
Typically till September.
Yeah, okay. I know we did it in the budget discussions last year when we did awarding the tenders. We asked those. We're gonna get it in one of the next tenders with the data. So, yeah. Okay, so there is a recommendation. I think I read the recommendation. No. Yes, I did. Yes.
Yes. This is for this would be for the winter season, so yes. From September to March.
Okay, okay. So everybody understands, I'll read it one more time. That committee recommends the council award the winter sand tender EC-PW-23-03 to Willis Kerr Limited at the unit price of $18.60 per metric ton, and authorize staff to execute any necessary contract documents. Need a mover? Moved by Councillor Martel, seconded by Councillor Chris Ward. All in favor? Approved and crushed rock tender. ECPW 2304. Sean.
Mr. Chair, purpose of this action item is to award the supply of crush rock to Hackberry and Sons Company Limited. The crush rock tender was issued February 15th, 2023. The local companies have placed on the website for supply of approximately 7,500 metric tons of crushed rock or gravel road resurfacing and shaping. The staff received 3 submissions by March 7th, 2023 deadline listed below. And the lowest tender or bid was by the Hackberry and Sons. Financial consideration, the purpose of the proposed 2020 budget includes $99,000 for maintenance gravel. The low bid was submitted by Chief Hackberry and Sons. The unit price of it is 24 cents per ton higher than 2022, about 1.8% increase, and about $4,000 higher than the proposed 2022 budget.
Thank you, Sean. So this comes, this recommendation comes that committee recommends that council award the supply of crush rock tender EC-PW-23-04 to G Hackberry and Sons at the unit price of $13.74 per metric ton to a maximum of $103,050 plus non-rebated HST. Discussion on this?
So similar question, I guess, to the prior one. So if there's a maximum, did I not see that? Maybe I didn't see it. What if we have need for more than that? Yeah. Through the chair approach to get that same price for board.
Through the chair, typically that's the price that we may be able to. We typically also put out just a request quotation from various gravel companies and get priced on their gravel. Typically this one is maybe a bit lower. We don't necessarily use all of that gravel up, so it's to our benefit that we have this much in case we need it further down the road to get it at lower price. It be negotiable with the business owner whether he would honor that price.
Thank you. Good. And it's, and I think it's worth noting that it's a 1.8 increase over last year. Again, less than inflation, so it's good to see that it's not out of control, so. Okay, further comments, questions? Hearing none, then I'll call for, or I've already read it, so I'll ask for a mover. Moved by Councillor Smale, seconded by Councillor Chris Ward. Comments, questions? No, I'll call the question then, all in favor? Good, and so then we are on to item J, which is the dust suppressant tender EC-PW-23-05.
First of this action item is to award the supply and application of road dust suppressant ECPW 2305 to LE dust control. The background in conjunction with the granular application road reshaping a liquid dust suppressant, either magnesium chloride or calcium chloride, applied to mitigate and control dust on gravel roads. The tender was issued by invitation on February 15th to qualified companies, placed on the website for the supply of approximately 210,000 liters liquid dust suppressant based on past quantities. Staff received 2 submissions by March 7th, 2023 closing date. The results are listed as a lead dust control 0.349 per liter for $73,000, and polar distribution at 0.395 for $83,000. The 2023 draft budget includes $50,000 for dust suppressant. The low bid was submitted by Downey Dust Control Limited, prices about 4 cents a liter higher than the 2022 pricing, a 12.6 increase. And $23,000 higher than the proposed budget.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. So this one comes with a recommendation. The committee recommends the council award the supply of dust suppressant tender EC-PW-23-05 to Daily Dust Control Limited at the unit rate of 34 $34.349 40 cents per liter to a maximum of $73,290 plus non-related HST. Discussion? Yes.
Through the mayor to Mr. Shaw. What's the difference between the magnesium chloride and the calcium chloride?
One, obviously from the name calcium, it's a calcium salt, the other was a magnesium salt. The concentrations required to give you dust control are different of the two. But it's stipulated in the contract that 50% needed to make them equal, so either one will work. Calcium chloride is typically looking at.
So one's not more expensive than the other.
Typically, I would believe magnesium would be more expensive.
Thank you.
Questions? Debbie?
Just so you know, the prior tenders, we knew that, we knew the players that speak there, so, and I must confess, I've never heard about one of these two, so I don't know, you know, I mean, we're talking about Dally and Position as the leading bid. Do we have a good history or know something about them as well to make sure that we don't have any service issue, because these will be providing service, not just dropping it off for us to distribute ourselves, right? So.
Through the chair, daily, actually posted out of the port. We have a production facility in there. We have a pretty good working.
Nor they live.
I do have one question, and I remember this was a difficult discussion at this table last year, and we discussed you know, trying to stay within budget and different ways to try to stay within it. And it was reduction of concentration. It was putting less out or only buying up to $50,000, only buying up to the budget and not going over the budget. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, at some point somebody gave us some suppressant to put on that didn't meet the minimum requirements or concentration as well. We ended up putting those on as well, right?
Through the chairs, I think we had the full amount for dust suppression. And we tried to minimize. It's hard to do with that because you don't know what the quality of the gravel you had, what happened in the last, depending on the stuff you get. We did get some uncertified liquid that was basically dilute, not a liquid, but it was free. So basically, we got what we needed, and the supplier offered to supplier to give us basically this off spec material, which we gladly accepted.
Right. And so, and I guess where my question goes then, if you can refresh, and this may go back to somebody at that table as well, then this question. So in last year's budget, because I think, if memory serves me right, when we because we're already going 23,000 over budget now in this item. And I know that it was a discussion last year, but I can't remember the outcome of that discussion. Did we approve the purchase of over budget last year, or did we keep it to the budget number?
Through the chair, I don't want to say 100%, but we do have set the limit, which I believe was what was the maximum budget. I think if I'm not mistaken. I think long and short is that it's pretty consistent with respect on the application that we use each year. I think the number is 210,000 leagues versus 108,000 pages. I can't recall exactly what that amounts to. Is, but you shortchange that end of it, and then you're going to certainly increase the chances of resident complaints with respect to dust. So to me, it is unfortunate, and we'll certainly, look to apply as we can, but, I would certainly not recommend, reducing that amount of dollar value, but certainly understanding that, in the overall, public works budget, we're going back to make that difference, issue.
Through the chair, I also came in a little bit low on this one, and I apologize, I should have adjusted for last year's cost because it was 31 cents a liter last year. But the previous year to that, we had somebody come in at 21 cents a liter. And that kind of was way out in the one field. And yeah, and unfortunately, we sent out to them to come back in, but they haven't. They're a fairly big player in that industry. So I'm not sure if it's because of the quantity we want is so small. I tried to contact them to get some more information.
Okay, so my concern is, you know, we're budgeting 50K, we're spending 75, you're, 30% over that line item. We haven't passed to the council yet. And I just, I think if we spent that much last year, we, would have, I would think that we would adjust that for that dollar value this year. I think that's my only concern. So going forward, I hope that gets it done. I mean, I think the 73 290 will be well used, well, it'll do the job that it's supposed to, and hopefully we'll keep the concerns under control with that amount. With that amount, do we have the ability again, like we've asked on the others, to, if we need more, do we have the ability to go back for more?
Through the chair, again, that would really be up to the supplier. That's what our ask is, and I'm not sure what availability is all around, but certainly something we could talk to them and negotiate with.
Were they the source of the free stuff last year?
Yes.
So they have some more free stuff this year. Okay, so the committee recommends that council award the supply of dust suppressant tender ECPW 23-05 to Delhi Dust Control Limited at the unit rate of, I'm going to struggle again, 30, I don't have to say that. 0.349 cents.
Yeah.
Dollars per liter to a maximum of $73,290 plus non-rebated HST. Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Smale, seconded by Councillor Ward. Call the question. All in favor? Good. All right, and so we are on item K, which is the TNPI use of Stafford Road unopened road allowance. Does that go to CAO clerk or Director of Operations? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first of this action item is to take direction of the council to enter an agreement with TNPI for the use of Stafford Road. That's the Northern Pipeline. The township has received a request from Transnational Pipeline Inc. To use an unopened road portion of Stafford Road. It's basically off the corner of the junction of King and Stafford. The pipeline integrity dates and potentially maintenance. The expected duration is between April 1st, 2023 and June 30th. The NPI is well aware of the half load restrictions and is committed to comply. So they're talking about using the unopened road allowance and using a 0.028 acre section of it for mobilization and demobilization. So basically for dropping off equipment, mats, etc. And then using it for the rest of the duration, approximately 3 to 4 weeks of daily use by 4 to 5 trucks with their welders and so forth. So smaller trucks. Yeah. The affected landowners, municipalities, and associations will be consulted if they haven't been so already. Access of the big site landowners are required to sign agreements prior to TNPI proceeding. TNPI has claimed to work in this area previously and is aware of local club and association use. There's no basic financial considerations for the township in regard to this request. There would be, there's a copy of the ENPI site plan attached for your review, and where they're gonna be doing their taking digs and maintenance off that runs parallel to the 401 at the end of that, an open road allowance. And there's also a draft copy of an agreement which has been used before in regard to use of other unopened road allowances.
Good, thank you very much. All right, so to committee concerns, comments, questions to the director.
Easy pleasy, they run a good show. I think, no issues at all. So,
So I just, you know, I know we're talking about gas and wells or salt in combination. Are there any safety issues or safety plans that are put in place when something like this happens, just in case there is an event or something? I don't know if it's regards to whether they're actually there, or is it just you know, do they shut the entire line off and it's just like insert is not valid, I guess. Was that a question? I don't know if it's a question. That's what I was on. I worry about the safety aspect, yes, is where I'm going with it, and so if something were to go awry, the combination of welding and gas is what I'm basically saying. You know, do we have measures in place for that, or do we even need measures in place because it is a safe? I don't know.
So, yeah, through the chair, they would certainly have, the emergency response plan, agency plan in effect. We do have, periodically with respect to that, and any adverse effects that in contact.
Any further questions?
we've done this hundreds of times.
No question, just a comment. To echo what the deputy mayor said, Don and I had land once with this company, and they're fantastic, the communication, very professional, very.
Yes, sorry, if I may also. Councilor Ward may not be aware, but it's a typical thing in the township. So almost every year we have them, we have 4 other applications in for entrance permits, which is what brought this about. It's a little bit of a strange predicament using an unopened road allowance. So this will be the 5th for this year. They do have a very good record, and they have a a representative that will speak to people, approaches landowners, and they do have agreements and explaining everything very well. Being aside, they are have a very good emergency programs and so forth. Some of us had the opportunity to actually go visit the site at one time. I'm not sure if Deputy Mayor Bill Hall, were you there? Or?
I missed it, but I was in there in the case, yes.
It's quite interesting, and it's not necessarily that it's going to be volume going to go on there. They do the integrity part, and I believe they shoot a mechanical peg up the pipe and check it out for cracks and so forth. And then if they do find a bad spot, they definitely know what to do.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you for the extra context. That was good. Thank you.
So my only question is it the same, so it's the same area just north of the 401 that they've already done on both sides of Shanley Road?
Through the chair, this section it's another section. They've claimed to have done this one in the past. I haven't seen it, the state portion. So it's right at the very end of Safford Road, the boundary road, and it cuts through there. I think they did do work on off Shanley Road, but to the west. I believe there was a section there they did. A little farther down, I know they did on Jordan. And this year they're looking at going in off of Winans Road, 2 directions, and 2 spots on Ruby Road plus Safford would be the 5th.
You know, they had, I know on the, and I'm assuming it's the same company, but when I do the loop to go every morning to Brockville, the mats were all down, they had all the machines all going. So but they were going east as well, and that's where my question is I'm surprised they need to come down Safford Road, and why wouldn't they just continue along the pathway that they were already going down the pipeline?
Through the chair, they do it in sections, small sections, and I'm not sure if that's as a result of the paving
speed with the mechanical robot high school, they shoot down the pipe and we found something that's a curiosity.
Yeah.
They check it out
Oh,
sometimes.
so they're just going to hit, having,
Pardon me.
they're just going to that spot and having a.
That's right. The paint is even this description, the basically the area they're looking at,
Right.
so. If you see on that depiction there, the old Safford Road's at the very end of it.
Yep.
And there's a section there, I'm not sure the second section. I think.
Okay. So will they be making improvements then to Safford Road? Like it's pretty bushy, right? Like, I mean, I've been out there, we used to go rabbit hunting out off the road, so,
Through the chair, pretty good road right now.
oh, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and they will not make any modifications because I supplied them with a copy of the road allowance. And under that, there's certain restrictions. If you're gonna approve it, it has to be improved to township standards. They don't plan on doing any improvements, but if they would road it anyway, they will repair it.
Okay.
As is, I know there's the four-wheeler clubs and I think maybe snowmobile clubs even use that road, I'm not sure, but
Sure, does it require brushing, does it require opening of
I
anything?
don't believe so.
No. Okay, that's it for me. I think. Just suppressing Safford Road. All right, there was a recommendation too, yes. No.
Recommend the committee. Safford Road. Page 81.
So the recommendation is that committee recommends that council approve the TNPI request for use of the Safford Road unopened road allowance and direct staff to prepare a bylaw to enter into an unopened road allowance agreement. Any mover? Moved by Councilor Martell, seconded by Councilor Ward. Further discussion? All in favor? Great. And the big one. We gotta step away. So note for the minutes that Deputy Mayor Dillabaugh has left his seat and the discussion will not be taken anyway in this discussion. Alrighty, so we are looking at County Road 2 infrastructure and road reconstruction tender award, CAO grant. We bring this one forward for us.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, I can bring this started forward. Just with the tender was issued on December 15th, 2022, and placed on the government site. At tender closing, we had three bids. Four bids at closing with D. Kavanaugh Construction Limited as the low bid. With respect to during that review process, we did the engineers did locate irregularity, and what that definition sort of indicates is that it is not really material to either price, quality, quantity, and delivery. And based on confirmation of legal counsel, it is that the opportunity to correct the errors. So with this large project, we sort of broke down the two components with respect to tender submission and contract administration. And the initial breakdown to cover the expense of the whole $4,628,297.12 plus non-related HST with breakdown about 1.4 million coming from the ISA Green Stream. Then we also have 400,000 coming from the OCIF and 278,000 approximately coming from formerly was the gas tax in the CCDF grant. 200,000 from the dedicated capital reserve fund. Approximately 1.578 coming from the Harrison Rental, There'd be 390,000 from the Cardinal Water Reserve Fund. There are 180,000 from the Cardinal Wastewater Reserve Fund. And the remaining shortfall with respect to the wastewater, at least initially, we got a 20-year venture with million. Total cost of that tender plus the contingency coming in around just under 5.3 million. The contracted in portion with Q1 engineering, the estimate of 258,000 would be knocked down with basically 107,000 coming from the Austin Green Stream, 83,000 coming from United Cairns and Leeds and Brundle, and the remaining portion coming from the Cardinal Water Reserve Fund to match that. So we're not the expense of 258,000. So just to sort of further back with respect to the Green Stream, only the water portion and very other limited items actually has the cost. And one of those eligible costs is contract. We're utilizing the information all in all, very large project with a combination of several grants in partnership with the county, and it will have a pretty significant impact on the user in the Cardinal Water and Wastewater system, but we certainly feel that we have the mechanisms to cover that and some flexibility with respect to the to that convention and some options that will be available like this year. So, I guess we'll open up if there are some questions before we touch on the recommendation. I anticipate early.
Good, thank you, CEO Grant. So I will open the floor to discussion on this. I will Councillor Snail first.
To the mayor, to the CAO. I was reading through this today and it's, I just got a question on, there'd be somebody that's going to oversee this the whole time. Is that included in the price? Or will we be paying that company separate?
Through the chair, yes, that is one in within the contract administration. That would be somebody on site full time, and then also in addition to that, would be what we call a contract administrator.
Thank you.
Good. We'll be on. You're good. I'm very confused.
We originally thought this was about $4 million, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when we were first looking at tenders. I guess that's a question of with or without tax, first and foremost. 4.2, I think so.
So through the chair, I would say that the original estimate by the engineer was just around that 4 million. One thing that I would always say with the Class B estimates is that it's sort of like plus or minus 25%. If you look at that, we're probably rated that 25% on the it's estimated long by 25%. So typically those estimates don't necessarily include the tax portion. Their taxes would be extra. So in fairness, it's about 600,000 from what the estimate was. If I'm correct, they were on 4 million.
Well, through the chair again, and so my question was more along the lines of based on that 25% increase, and when you look at how we're funding this effort, it's an impact to sort of taxpayers in the form of about $200,000, which, I think covers, we think about this cover sidewalks and things like that are not covered normally by that. And like I said, the venture, which is about $50,000 a year essentially, for the uses of the water system. So I guess what I'm trying to say there is I think you did a pretty good job of still making it, I'm gonna say easy to manage, but I don't want to say it like that. But I mean, it could have been a lot more situation, I think, to get to the point. So I like the number crunching. I like the packages we put together because it gave us enough information to review this pretty easily. I found, so thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Certainly have to staff to working on ideas and concepts. It's and then for sure, all now coming together is at least a reasonable starting point approach with respect to having the funds needed to cover this project and move forward with the needed project really.
Yeah, just laugh. It was more of a, I don't know if it's done or not, but I guess it's probably a good opportunity while they're doing all this work to open up the doors to say other services like internet and everything else there to say, listen, carrying this up in case you want to do it for your infrastructure in the area. But anyways, I think that was more, part of the process probably, but good idea to do a lot of stuff like you at the same time. Yeah, that's it. You don't want to be cut the freshman. No, please don't do that. I don't have the new paper.
Yeah, so the chairman, as part of that initial design process, that would be utilities that area or something. In fact, that are aware of the project, and we certainly have expressed that the last thing that Indios want is more another utility not to perform upgrades. If they're aware of, naturally, if they're aware of the issues, because we don't want to achieve that newly finished product.
Be cars.
Obviously, we'll guarantee, we'll certainly through the work of staff and the engineer that we contracted to do it. We made a pretty valid effort in trying to ensure that all of this can be done good shape by the time.
Thank you, CEO. Further?
No, thanks for getting it easy.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions first. The contract admin portion the contract only goes till December 20th, 2023. What happens if the project's not done by then and is continued on into 2024?
Through the chair, there is that potential that as of right now, in conversation with the counties, the engineer, and what we anticipate by the contractor that it should be completed by that time. And if not, there may be some minor items, but once we do December 1st, construction will be stopping until spring. If additional would be needed, right now we would be looking at the carbon water reserve to cover some of these the contract and possibly we should go there.
Go into 2024. Okay. I think that was the biggest. Everybody else sort of covered most of the comments and the concerns. Mine was, the other one is the rail crossing. Goes through that. So is it fair to say for everybody watching this discussion, so they've made it this far, that the rail crossing will finally get improved as well as this project's obviously going to improve underground. The road's not in terrible shape by any stretch, the railway crossing is, but that'll get the railway crossing fixed and back to a reasonable standing.
So through the chair, as previously, we didn't come to We can actually, so yes, the rail crossing is part of that project.
And so just for, again, just for clarity for anybody that might be paying attention, the railway crossing is the responsibility of.
So the railway crossing will be the responsibility of Meridian. I'm not exactly sure whether it's to, on each side. A problem with the railway that. Good combination of all of them.
Okay, good. And lastly, I will say this, again, as I think Councilor Ward talked about this project being laid out very well in front of us. I think, from a funding source, you couldn't have laid this out any better. It's an enormous project for us to do. And you can correct me, CAO, if I'm wrong, but I believe the applications for funding on this project probably outdate. Well, it doesn't outdate all the staff on this side, but it might outdate in your current roles, all staff on this. And I think it might have been the 9th application or 8th application for funding. And we finally were successful. And of a $5.2 million project, the direct ratepayers are going to be responsible for what, about 30% of that total. We're getting, a ton of money from the ICIP green stream. The counties is covering a large portion. There's gas tax funding, there's OCIF funding. There's a lot of sources of funding coming together to make this project happen. I love that the treasurer took the time to lay out all those different sources of funding so that we all at the table had a great understanding of where it came from. And at the end of the day, that there's still $1 million that's left that has to be spoken for. So well done, even right up from the application process to get the grant and to continue to pushing it forward. This has been I know we've talked about it since my first day at council, and it'll be nice to watch and finally see this much needed project come to completion. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I can say this as well, having approved at special council last week, the United Counties budget and the full value from was covered in the United Counties, their portion was included in their budget as well. So they have the funds set aside and they're ready to go as well. So, good work. Move the recommendation.
The only thing that I would sort of say is it's too bad that we didn't have looking to the future with respect to when we did submit under the US Supreme Stream that we can the inflation rate is probably the commission would have been a little higher than I think staff as
I mean, all tax dollars are taxpayer dollars, but getting a good share to help towards a project that would in no way ever get completed. Without that help, it's valuable. It needs to get done, and it's great that we got it. So, yeah, well done. There is a recommendation though. So the committee recommends that council award the County Road 2 construction project EC-ES-22-02 to Thomas Cavanaugh Construction Limited at a cost of $4,628,297.12 plus non-rebated HST, and 2, direct staff to develop and enter into an agreement with the United Counties of Leeds Grenville outlining project cost sharing, and 3, award the contract administration and site inspection to Dual Engineering Incorporated at an upset limit of $258,128 plus non-rebated HST. I need a mover for that, please. I need a seconder for that, please. Sorry, it was Councillor Chris Ward and Councillor Smith. Further discussion on this is an enormous project.
I'd just like to say something, Chair, to Mr. CAO and the board. I was employed for the township and Cardinal, and this has been a talk that's been needed for probably 15 years, I would think. And they're really gonna be happy when there's no more water breaks in the middle of the winter, especially employees in the water and sewer. I mean, I remember one time we were on there, we got 3 right in a row, we fixed one, had to fix the next one that was on the other side, like just. It's like you did a really good job getting it done. Well, not done yet, but making sure that it's getting done. So my congratulations on your good job.
Good, further discussion at all? Anything? Good. All right, then I'll call the question, all in favor? Good. Okay, I believe that the deputy mayor can really take a seat. So please note in the minutes that, as of item 8, that Deputy Mayor Villabon has taken his seat. Moving on to inquiries and notices of motion. Does anyone have an inquiry or notice of motion? Might be at first. Okay, then mayor's reports. Mayor's report, kind of already reported the few things that I did have to say. At special council last Wednesday morning, the United Counties of Leeds Grenville passed their 2023 budget with a tax increase to the United Counties of Leeds Grenville portion of tax bills in the amount of 6.87, excuse me, 6.87% increase there, coupled with the 2.63 that we approved tonight will bring ours effectively to 3.610 or 12. Sorry, I have it written. I do have it written here somewhere. 3.612.
Yes.
3.612. I want to commend, again, I said this earlier, but I'll say it again quickly. I want to commend staff on a very good process, on a process that can be very divisive and very difficult for not only us, but for you folks as well. We want to make sure that everybody understands and respects the hard work that the folks at the table put in, and that all the staff puts in to get to that number. So thank you for that. Another quick comment, and I do want to do this earlier today. I just think that it's important for members to know, and I know that there'll probably be an email going up later about this, but a week or so ago, you may or may not have noticed the Ontario government passed Bill 63, which combined lands in and around St. Thomas, Ontario. And today, the province of Ontario announced that Volkswagen Canada will be building their first plant in Ontario in that land of St. Thomas. So we have been, diligently working along at Job Site Challenge for announcements just like these. And I think for everyone around the table, it's worthwhile noting what happened for Bill 63. If you haven't paid any attention to it, it's good to read and make sure that you take the time to read the announcement today that went on St. Thomas, and remember the good work as we push forward for Job Site Challenge. So that's it for my mayor's report. There are no members of the public here. Do we have any questions from media? None, and none from residents as well, correct? We have no closed session tonight, and I need a mover for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Chris Ward, seconded by Councillor Bobby Smith. All in favor? Adjourned. For another hour, guys. I wasn't gonna spend an hour with you. Well done. So it's, yeah, well done. Team tight. Tell me about Steve. Steve. I need you for 1 second. I need you for 1 second.
All right.